Hey everyone, today we are going to talk about how to represent integers for real world situations and also how to graph integers on the number line. First, we have some vocabulary with some examples and some non-examples. So this is our first experience with negative numbers or integers. So a negative number is a number less than 0. And the definition of integers are positive and negative whole numbers. So in my examples, the ... means that it continues going on in both directions. But you can see that it's -3, -2, -1, 0, 1, 2, 3. And again, it can continue off in both directions. So -4, -5, and so on. Our non-examples are going to be things that are not whole numbers, still including positives and negatives, but they're just kind of whatever numbers I could think of. So 2/3, -1/2, 0.3, and -0.86, just like random numbers that are not whole numbers that include both positives and negatives. This vocabulary down here, so these words down here, are what we are going to see when we look at integers in real world situations. So it's going to be, do you recognize these words as what they represent? Do they represent something going up or going down, positive versus negative? So a withdrawal is to take out, and it means like to take money out of the bank. So when you think about the bank account balance, that's what's going down. So a withdrawal is going to be a negative on your bank account. A deposit means that you're putting money into the bank or you're putting something in. And again, you have to think about the money in the account and what's happening to that money. When you deposit something, the money is going up. Par is a big one that we'll talk about because it's not a positive or a negative word. It actually means 0. So in golf, you get a certain number of tries to hit the golf ball in the hole. And if you get it in that exact number of tries, that is par. So that represents 0. A debt and a fine are very similar to each other. You're going to owe money or you're going to owe something to somebody else. Those are going to be negative words. So to be in debt or to owe a fine, is going to be negative. And then ascend and descend. Ascend is to go up and descend is to go down. So D and then ascend to go up. So down in example 1, we are going to be using some of these words that we talked above here and then just our general knowledge of positive versus negative vocabulary to write an integer for each situation. So part A says a temperature decrease of 15 degrees. A decrease of 15 degrees is going to be -15. A deposit of 310 is going to be 310. And I don't need a plus sign to represent my positive numbers. 42 feet above sea level is going to be 42. 3 strokes under par is going to be -3. So if par is 0, then under par is going to be -3. The airplane descended 3,000 feet, so -3,000. An elevation of 2,500 feet is going to be positive 2,500. A loss of 8 yards is going to be -8. A complete pass for a 15-yard gain is going to be positive 15. If I gained 8 pounds over Christmas break, that's going to be a positive 8. And if it is 15 degrees below 0, it's -15. So the words that I underlined were what told me it was a positive or a negative, and then I represented it with the correct sign and then the value that they gave me. So you already have the value, you just have to give it the appropriate sign. On the next page here, we're going to talk about number lines and how to graph integers on the number line. So number lines can be written horizontally or vertically. You're most commonly going to see them this way, horizontally. They just take up less room that way when we use them. When I draw my number lines, I typically like to put 0 in the middle. It's just a personal preference. And then I count in both directions very symmetrically. So this would be 1, 2, 3, 4, and then -1, -2, -3, -4. Positives go to the right, negatives go to the left, and you are counting away from 0 as you go. On my vertical number line, positives are going to go up, so 1, 2, 3, and then negatives are going to go down, so -1, -2, -3. And your opposite values, so 1 and -1, should be the same distance away from 0 on that number line. So when I graph these integers, so here's 0, I'm going to plot -1, -2, -3, and there's my -3 on the number line. So I'm going to put a point on that number because I'm specifically graphing that number. For the next one, it says -4, 2, and then -1. So I'm going to start with 0, so -1, 2, 3, 4, and then 1, 2, 3, 4. I don't have to label every single thing if I don't want to, but these number lines are small enough. So -4, +2, and then -1. Number 3, I'm going to do the same thing. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So -3, 0, -2, and +4. This last one, we're going to do a vertical number line. So it says Alex and her dad played golf on 4 different days. The data set -1, +1, -3, +2 shows Alex's scores in relation to par. Graph the scores and explain the meaning of 0. So here's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So -1, +1, -3, and +2. And then we talked about how in golf this represents par. So these scores are going to be above par, okay? And those are going to be your those are going to be your not so good scores. So if you're above par, that's not a good thing. And then down here is going to be your below par, and that means that you played really well. So this is an example of how we can use those real world situations on a number line.